If you're new to street photography, then here is a bunch of ideas that I wish I knew sooner to hopefully make the whole process a little bit more straightforward. I'd like to also thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Number one is get specific with your intentions and follow a theme. When you head outside, look out for things specifically like the color red, or pairs of things, or silhouettes, or reflections, or frames within a frames. If you can narrow your focus down to one or two things, that can make a huge difference. Heading outside and doing street photography is a very broad goal, and almost like staring at a blank canvas, whereas following a theme is like having an outline already ready to go to get the ball rolling and get your creative juices flowing. So even if it's just the first hour of the day, pick something specifically and try and narrow down and focus on that idea. Point number two is to prioritize walking 30,000 steps instead of prioritizing taking great pictures. Don't head outside with the sole aim of taking incredible photographs. You're probably going to be disappointed. Instead, prioritize walking and exploring. Why not plan your route with a coffee shop or a lunch spot you want to try? Think of your step count as the only tangible goal for the day. Street photography is incredibly unpredictable, and some days are filled with so many interesting things and other days are completely dry. One of my good friends and fellow street photographer, Paul Harrison, likes to call street photography his walking hobby. It's actually just him exploring and visiting new places rather than going out and expecting to take good photographs. Because taking good photographs is a fickle measurement, whereas your step count is pretty easy to track. And of course, you get both physical and mental benefits from this hobby. Point number three is to shoot street events and parades. If you're new to street photography, and sometimes even for myself after doing this for 5 or 6 years, going outside and having a camera on the street is sometimes attention that you don't want. Compared to everyone else who doesn't have a camera, you're just going to stand out, it's pretty obvious. Whereas taking pictures during an event or a parade is almost encouraged. The energy is brought to you instead of you trying to find it. This is also an excellent time to experiment with different gear, techniques, and approaches because you have an abundance of photographic opportunities in front of you. So if you were going to head out for perhaps the first time trying street photography, why not look out for the next event or street parade? That might make things a little bit easier to get the ball rolling. Number four is to consume more photo books. And I'm sure you have heard this before, but what you will get from a photo book is invaluable compared to what you will find on YouTube or scrolling Instagram. If you're unsure where to start on the photo book front, I do appreciate there are 1,000,001 options to choose from. I do recommend the Photo File series from Thames and Hudson. There is so many of these little books, just small profile pieces on some great photographers from over the years. There are so many to choose from, but also check out some of the essentials like Street Photography Now or Reclaim the Streets or 100 Iconic Street Photographs. These books will also help you dive deeper and find other photographers and show you what's possible and what's already been done. And these books have certainly helped me discover new photographers and learn about the history of street photography. Unfortunately, photo books are not as free as watching YouTube videos or scrolling on Instagram, but I promise you having the photographs flicking through the pages in your hand will be one of the best ways you can learn more about photography. If you would like some more photo book recommendations specifically, then I have created a blog or two on my website sharing which ones are my favorite and why. I will leave a link in the video description for you to check those out, and I actually created those blogs with today's sponsor, Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace for many years as the all-in-one place to run my online business. I use Squarespace to host my portfolio of photography, write blogs, and even write a weekly newsletter. If you would like to hear more from me and behind the scenes from my world of photography, then I write a weekly newsletter called The Focal Point. You can sign up on my website. I also use Squarespace to sell digital and physical products. Squarespace really has been the all-in-one, reliable, consistent place where I've been able to do everything I've wanted with my photography online. If you've never created a website before, then fear not, as Squarespace has hundreds of beautiful templates to choose from, or you can even let AI do the heavy lifting for you and have a website up and running in literally minutes. Why not at least start a free trial and see what you think? After that, when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Mike Chudley to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. Now, let's get back to the video. Point number 5 is to get social. And I appreciate this will be different from person to person, as some people are more extroverted than others. But if you're trying to figure this thing out and you're trying to learn more about street photography, doing it alongside others is a great place to be. When I first started 5 or 6 years ago, I actually went out for the first time doing street photography with 1 or 2 of my good friends. And this made me feel a little bit safer, and the process of street photography felt less intimidating. But also, I felt less unusual in my interest in wanting to photograph people and understand the world around me. Obviously, you get the benefits of bouncing ideas off one another, but it's so interesting to see what other people see. And if you missed something, but someone else managed to catch it, you can share that experience. And street photography is very much a solo pursuit, and you will probably do most of your street photography alone. So if you can, try and prioritize whenever you can meeting other people, even if it's just for coffee or for lunch in between you doing street photography alone. But if you can, head outside a few times with other people. And if you don't like it, you prefer doing it by yourself, then fair enough. I'm partial to both. I love hanging around with other photographers, but I do also like being alone and pursuing it myself. But it has to be part of the conversation. Find other people, like-minded individuals that are also trying to figure this thing out. And if you have to, get active on Instagram, drop people DMs. I know Instagram and the internet gets a lot of hate, but it is certainly a great place to find people who are interested in what you are. So try and get involved in the community. And I can highly recommend things like the Framelines magazine. What Shane and Josh are doing with the Framelines and building a community of street photographers is really cool. But it's also easy for me to say all this being in London, in a big city where I'm likely to just bump into photographers all the time. If you do live in a quieter place, then lean into Instagram and comment on people's stuff and drop people some messages. I think being social with your street photography will have benefits that you don't necessarily realize right away. So yeah, try and build a small community with the people you know around you, or just reach out to other communities and try and get involved. Idea number 6 is to use a prime lens. And the reason for this is this will dramatically improve your compositions and understanding of that focal length far more than if you were able to just use a zoom. If you're using a zoom lens all the time, I do think this is a little bit of a get out of jail free card, especially if you're a beginner trying to understand why certain photographs look better than others. If you have a prime lens like a 28 or 35 or a 50, this means you have to problem solve more. And if you see something in the distance with a zoom lens, you can zoom in and out and catch the thing within reason, and you could call it a day. Whereas if you have a prime lens, you have to think a little bit more. You will have to maybe get closer, reposition yourself, or be patient and wait for the thing to happen again. The idea of figuring out what makes the photograph good is part of the learning process. You can obviously do what you want, use a zoom lens if you want, but I think understanding certain compositions and depth of field and compression with a prime lens will teach you more about the photograph itself, rather than just zooming in and out and calling it a day. I also never leave the house with more than one prime lens because that limits my choice. And with a zoom lens, you have plenty of choices of what focal length you want to capture that image at. And the more choices you have sometimes can lead to indecision. Like watching Netflix, you open up Netflix, you're scrolling for 35 minutes trying to find something to watch, compared to already having a specific idea of what you're going to watch and then opening Netflix to watch it. That is much easier. And that's how I feel about choosing a prime lens. If I head outside for the day with my 35mm, that's how I'm going to shoot all day. And it actually makes the process a bit more streamlined and straightforward. Idea number 7 is the importance of warming up. What I'm suggesting here is I encourage you to take photographs of absolutely anything. Signs, the floor, bins, light, shadows, anything that comes up that remotely catches your eye. Don't overthink about it and just press a shutter button. This helps you get used to being that person with the camera taking pictures and almost get over that first hurdle of perhaps people watching you, or you're unsure of what to take photographs of, or you're just a little bit self-conscious with the fact that you're the person on the street with a camera. If you can head outside and straight away get 20 or 30 photographs in the bag, just get comfortable with pressing that shutter button. And I feel like there's something that unlocks when you get over that first hurdle and you're there to take photographs and you're there to document things. Don't worry about it too much and try and get as close to flow as you can. And the reason for that is that when something happens, you're already there. It's not going to be your first photograph of the day. It might be the first interesting thing you've seen, but at least you've warmed up and you've pressed the shutter button a handful of times. I actually really look forward to my first hour of street photography because I know it's my most free-flowing and almost limitless part of the day. Because I know I'm just trying to warm up my eyes and take a few photographs, I'm more playful and not taking myself too seriously. And I think that behavior echoes throughout the rest of the day. If I could take more photographs early on, I think I'm likely to continue taking more photographs for the rest of the day. Idea number 8 is to gamify the process by looking for colors, patterns, shapes. This is an easy way for you to focus your attention without initially worrying about storytelling. This is very similar to my point earlier about following a theme and being specific with your intentions, but perhaps this is taking it one step further. If you're following the theme of red, then maybe add blue, yellow, and green to that as well. Now you have the theme of primary colors. Now for the next hour or two, you're only allowed to take photographs of primary colors and try and combine all of those themes and ideas into one photograph. And that will progressively get harder the more complicated you make it. But this idea means that you're taking more photographs and you can understand what you do and don't like about them at a later date as well. If you're going through your photographs at the end of the day after following the theme of red, you can find specific things that you do and don't like in those photographs. Instead of going home with a collection of a whole load of random things and not really knowing what to make of it, if you can gamify it, like reviewing a leaderboard at the end of the day, if you can gamify the process and think, how many apples can I find today? How many bananas can I find today on the street? And then reviewing which of those photographs you do and don't like will help you think about your own photography going forward. Now, if you're not a gamer and this idea just sounds silly, then obviously ignore this. But for me, I played a lot of video games growing up, and the idea of what would make this photograph better, what else could I include in the frame to improve this, is very much like treating it like a game. So hopefully that helps. Point number 9 is that people don't care. Smile and move on. If you're noticed taking photographs on the street or taking photographs of someone specifically and someone looks concerned, or even if someone questions what you're doing, a very simple smile, head nod, good afternoon, good morning normally diffuses any tension. If you have to, explain what you were doing, say hello, and most people just simply don't care and carry on with their day. This is obviously really easy for me to say in central London when everyone's just busy being busy, but if you're in a quieter area where having a camera brings you a little bit more attention, then you just have to change your approach. The way you do street photography walking down Fifth Avenue in New York is going to be way different than walking down some sleepy village in England. So consider your approach and your body language and the way you appear, and you want to be as friendly and warm and welcoming to anyone that might have any questions about what you're doing, because you're not doing anything wrong. So remember that your intentions are good and you're just trying to document the world around you. And I promise you, from the years I've done this, I've never had a single problem with anyone taking their photograph. And actually, the occasion it has been a problem is just wrong time, wrong place, and it's not about me specifically. And in fact, the people not having a good time and me just getting in the way. So remember, people just want to crack on with their lives, and you taking their photographs shouldn't cause any problems. So say hello, smile, explain what you're doing if you have to, or simply just move on, and you shouldn't have any issues. And my final point in this video, and arguably the most important for people just getting started with street photography, is that there are no rules at all, and you really can do whatever you want. There are a lot of opinions flying around there from people on the street or people on YouTube, including myself, that might suggest certain things like I have done in this video. I've tried to share 9 different things with you here that might help you with your street photography. If you disagree with any of it, that's cool. Crack on and do your own thing, because for the most part, street photography is a personal pursuit and you're expressing yourself creatively, and you can do that in any which way you want. So if you hear people say that taking photos of silhouettes is boring, or cropping your images is wrong, or whatever it might be, whatever opinion or misconception is out there, you can just ignore that. And if you resonate slightly with the idea, like hopefully you think some of these ideas in this video might be helpful, then feel free to try those out and see if that helps you with your work. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. So remember, if this is your first time heading outside to do street photography, keep it playful, try and have fun with it, and don't take yourself too seriously, because there really are no rules with what we're doing.